Let's continue working on the project from 19.7 where we learned how to actually render a template, and we're going to go ahead and modify the about page view. And in this case, we will actually want to pass data to this template. Now what we're going to do is we still leave this the same, where we have our two variables that are coming in along with the request object. And then we're going to change what we do inside this view function. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a brand new variable. We're going to call it context. You can really call it anything you want. And then within context, we are going to go ahead and create a dictionary. And we're going to specify a key called trip_name. And then we're going to go ahead and pass this parameter to that variable. Now you don't have to. We could have actually put a string, we could have put another variable, you could put anything you want. We're just saying though, whatever this parameter receives, we're going to assign that as the value for this key. And then let's create another key, and we're going to call it trip length. And we're going to do the exact same thing where we bring in this parameter, and that will be the value for this key. And then the very last one, we're going to create a brand new key, and we'll call it places to visit, and its value is going to be a list, and we're going to choose a list of places in Costa Rica. And I'll go ahead and drop this over here so you can see that. It's going to be Arenal Volcano, the Manuel Antonio National Park, and the Monteverde Cloud Forest. Make sure that is a list of 3 items. I'll minimize that so you can see it just a little bit better. There's your list with the 3 items. And we assign that as the value for the key places to visit. Make that a little bit bigger so you can see it, hopefully a little bit better. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and return a render. Remember, first parameter is the request that we received from the client. Actually, it went from the client to the server to the render function. And then we're going to say that if they recall this view function, we're going to go to the travel pages folder inside of the templates folder. Remember, we talked about that in the last video because of the settings.py file. In the settings.py file, we specified the search path, saying that we're going to start searching at the templates directory. So it looks at the templates directory and then goes to travel pages inside of templates. And then we're going to say, we're going to go ahead and return the about.html template. And then an optional third parameter is you can pass it data. Now we're passing it the variable context. It doesn't have to be called context. It could be called anything, but we're going to use the variable context, and that's going to be this dictionary. So that dictionary is going to be sent into this template, and then it gets all packaged up into a response object and gets sent back to the client. So let's go ahead and save this. And now that we have our about.html template calling working, we need to actually go and create that about.html template. So let's make a brand new file. We're going to save that file as about.html, and then you need to make sure that it is in the templates folder and then the travel pages subfolder. And that's where we're going to store about.html. And that's where we stored our index.html also. Now we're going to go ahead and go back to our 19.8 in the book, and we're going to paste in this code. And let's talk about what this code actually does for us. So this code, which is just HTML, says that it's an HTML5. We have our HTML doc, our head section, our body section, and then within a p tag, we said the trip to, and then notice we have double curly braces, closing double curly braces, the word trip name. And then we have more text, double curly braces, trip length, double curly braces, days with airfare. Now this is called Django Template Language, or DTL. It's much like EJS and NodeExpress or Razor in ASP.NET. It's a markup language, and it allows you to specify values that should be dynamically inserted into this HTML file. And so if you take a look back over to here, we said pass the variable context to this template. Inside the variable context, which is a dictionary, it has a key called trip name, trip length, and places to visit. And so we said, pull in the trip name key, pull in the trip length key, which actually pulls in the value for those keys. So if we save this and we wanted to go ahead and run this, let's see what would happen. Let's start our server. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger again. We'll say Python manage.py run server. And we're going to go ahead and go to our main page, which shows our index. And then we're going to add the path, the about / Costa Rica / 23. And so Costa Rica goes into trip name, 23 goes into trip length. And let's see what happens. And that about.html actually worked. It pulled in Costa Rica and it pulled in 23. Now, how did it do that again? Because we said, if you ever call this view function, about page view, we received the parameters Costa Rica and 23. We assigned the value of Costa Rica to the key trip name. We assigned the value of 23 to the trip length. And then we passed that data to the about HTML. The about HTML then said use DTL, Django Template Language, and pull in a variable. That's what the two curly braces mean. Let's pull in a variable from the data. And so it says, well, what data do we have? Remember, we had context. And it said, well, from that dictionary, let's pull in the key trip name right here. And it said, this will now bring in the value for trip name. And this brings in the value for trip length. Now, how do I know it's really bringing in the value? What if I did this? Let's call that trip name A. If it was really bringing in the value, then we'll still see Costa Rica. Let's go ahead and start the server one more time. Python manage.py run server. Let's open up the index page. And let's go to the about URL with Costa Rica. The trip to nothing will be 23 days with airfare. So as you can tell, this really is the key out of the dictionary, and it automatically extracts the value. So make sure you change that back to be trip name, because we're going to keep working on this project. And that's how you can actually pass data to a template. You pass it through a dictionary, and then over in the template, you use DTL variables, which are the curly braces, to extract that data that was passed to the template.